by a show of hands, how many of us are feeling burnt out, jaded by the things we're seeing happen in the world around us? Well, whether you're a student, someone just starting a career, or someone who's been surviving corporate for years, we can all agree that to some extent, we're in survival mode. And the world only continues to give us reasons to feel desensitized and depleted. But this desensitization doesn't arrive all at once. It manifests quietly, beginning as personal burnout and expanding into this collective emotional erosion that wears down our capacity to express ourselves, empathize, and respond to our surroundings. So, how do we counteract this? How do we prevent our hearts and minds from going gray? What if I told you the answer wasn't becoming more disciplined, but rather maximizing our creativity? I'm breaking down a phenomenon today that I like to call creative neglect, a phenomenon that only happens when we don't take enough time to ground ourselves in the present, when we don't take enough time to look inward and figure out what aspects of our inner workings are we not tending to the most. Creative neglect is a phenomenon that I have suffered the effects of firsthand. This is me. Well, 17 years ago. At 5 years old, I didn't seem to be much more than a ball of creative energy who loved to write, always had a camera in her hand, and was struggling to hang on to her last few baby teeth. But it was at this age that I realized what it meant to be a change leader. I was 5 years old when I started my first charity initiative. And what began as just one little girl wanting to give away toys on Christmas Eve turned into a campaign that would provide resources to special needs youth for 13 consecutive years. This entirely apolitical catalyst awakened my love for service work and laid the foundation for what would become the rest of my career. However, it didn't prepare me for the war that would one day be waged on my psyche as a result. By the time I was even old enough to vote, I had spent over a decade organizing around climate justice, reproductive rights, and systemic racism in environments that most adults would have struggled to navigate, and traveled the nation working alongside families whose loved ones were martyrs of these movements. From the outside in, I was a success story. I was the girl on fire, an award-winning activist, a representation of the generation that was destined to save the world from itself. But from the inside out, I was just a kid, emotionally operating as if I was at war. After years of going nonstop and being a part of a generation that survived a global pandemic, watched the world burn in the name of George Floyd, and carried another life or death election on our backs, I couldn't help but feel as though part of me was dying. That constant state of urgency didn't just exhaust me, it eroded my emotional compass. I was colder, hardened. I self-isolated and felt extremely disconnected from those around me. And for a long time, I couldn't have told you what was wrong. And I worried that maybe this was it. Maybe this was burnout, finally catching up to me. But it wasn't just burnout. It was the result of my own creative neglect manifesting in real time. So often, when we think about examples of creativity, we think about things of visual magnificence, the paintings that hang in the Met, the sweeping turns of an Alvin Ailey dancer. We see examples of human creativity everywhere. But in these unique cases, we marvel at it. Like an oddity, imagining how any one person could come to be capable of such a thing. But what many people don't realize is that creative expression is something that we are all capable of, and is something that we need to stop taking for granted. While it may look like painting or movement for some, for others, creative expression looks like curiously wandering the halls of a museum or annotating a text. For some, creative expression looks like playing an instrument or even cooking new foods. These are all things that, if practiced regularly, are capable of boosting our self-confidence, helping us process the complexities of our world, and reducing stressors that would otherwise lead to emotional and mental deterioration. However, in a world burdened by time scarcity, one's ability to enact creative expression is often painted out as a luxury, one that can only be afforded to those who have nothing bigger to worry about. This framing is an illusion, that has historically only benefited systems of power and not the well-beings of people. When we neglect our creativity, we relinquish one of our most powerful tools for emotional processing, stifling our ability to imagine a brighter future and making burnout an inevitability. I was a junior in college, excuse me, when I hit rock bottom and I forced myself to reevaluate everything. I was raised in a family full of Black scholars and artists who believed that a person's creativity was just an internal manifestation of the natural world, a vast inner universe filled with ideas. While this foundation shaped the way that I moved through the world, the more serious things got for me on the front lines, the more that I realized I had begun to neglect the creative side of my brain. I found myself reminiscing on the days where if I was overwhelmed, I'd write a scene or scrape together a poem. I realized that over time, I had forgotten to nurture the one part of my brain that kept me balanced through some of the most chaotically formative years of my journey. And it was this realization that clued me into the fact that I needed a dire pivot. For years, I aspired to be a filmmaker, but I couldn't help but feel like any attempts to break into the entertainment industry would be a departure, a step away from the movement work that I had spent my entire life doing. So, I picked up the phone and I called a man by the name of Marquise Sterling Hunt. Marquise is a 25-year-old organizer from Virginia who's made history a number of times in his youth. To this day, he is one of my closest organizing siblings. Marquise was the first person I shared my self-doubts with, and he was the first person to tell me that my fears were foolish. "You're exhausted," he told me. "And how could you not be? You keep talking about your art like it would be some kind of distraction, but you need to trust your instincts. Trust your art to heal you." I remembered feeling such a deep apprehension, but I trusted him. And on some of my darkest days, I'd open up folders filled with opportunities that I bookmarked as distant dreams, jobs at my favorite production companies, fellowships, scholarship programs, and I just started applying. I figured, hey, if for nothing else, me submitting these applications will make me feel as though I've accomplished something for the day. I don't remember considering what would happen if I actually got any of them. In the months that followed, Marquise watched me take on esteemed fellowships, land my dream job, move across the country, and take on game-changing scholarships. Everything I had prayed for was happening. And I had never been more afraid. In spite of this, no matter how many tears I cried, no matter how many anxiety attacks I had, Marquise's advice remained the same. Trust your art to heal you, and the rest will follow. A little under a year ago today, I received a call. Marquise had suddenly passed away at the age of 26. I remember feeling so shaken, so uprooted, and for a number of days I found myself completely immobilized. I didn't know how to feel or how to process, and yet I found myself scrubbing through dozens of my old hard drives looking for something that could even come close to serving as an adequate reminder of what a giant, what a genius, a light this young man was to me. I'll never forget clicking on that last file on my last hard drive and pressing play, expecting nothing. And there Marquise was, laughing, talking, testifying. He laughed, joked, cried. He shared his love for our people and his passion for the work. He was everything that I remembered him being, and I could hardly believe my eyes. From that video, I would edit an 8-minute short film, sharing Marquise's emotional and inspiring sentiments with the world. I remember posting that video to social media and receiving hundreds of messages in a matter of minutes, from friends, family, complete strangers, people thanking me for introducing them to my brother and for giving them an opportunity to sit with him, with his words, one last time. In a few days, that piece amassed over 120,000 views, and it wasn't until then I realized Marquise was right all along. In the moment where I was at my most vulnerable, where I had no concept of how to process my grief, my trauma, my exhaustion, I made a film. This experience was all the proof that I needed that my creativity would never be a distraction. It was how I would survive and how I would begin to help members of my community heal. From that day forth, I dove headfirst into my craft, and I never looked back. I'm sharing this story because so often we feel compelled to write off our creative instincts. We dismiss our body's natural desire to imagine, to wander, to create anew. But today I challenge you, find one small way to prioritize your creativity every day, even if it's only for a few minutes. Take a walk through the park. Look at the flowers for a few seconds longer than you normally would. Write down the first few words that come to mind in the morning, because creative expression isn't just about creating art. It's how we stay human in a world that profits off of our numbness. It's how we turn our pain into something beautiful and how we prevent our hearts and minds from going gray. So, every chance that you get, choose to create. Because within that choice lies one of the most radical acts of resistance we have left, the act of reclaiming our humanity. Thank you for choosing to stay human with me.